After my previous video about different lighting techniques for flower photography, I realized one of the examples that I showed in that video is something I've used with my portrait photography for many years. And I'm talking about backlighting. And I thought this might be something interesting to discuss from this video. All right, so from the previous video, this one right here, this is probably the most direct example of backlighting. You know, it's when your entire background, at least what you see in the frame, is a light. That's a light in the back of your subject. It's backlighting. And as you can see here, this is the Apollo orb, and I've pretty much got the flower here centered. It's maybe a little lower than centered, but it's, you know, it's where I want it to get this picture that I'm trying to do here, and it's an example of backlighting, you know, with a flower. But you know, I've used it with people photography forever, and I just I guess I don't really think about it that much. I don't think about it as backlighting, but that's what it is. I've seen where people will consider almost any light coming in from behind the subject as something that they'll call backlighting. You know, right or wrong, I don't know, but that's, you know, what people will call it. Sometimes where the sun is somewhat behind the subject, creating a halo or a flare, they'll say that that's backlighting. Some say that when the light's behind the subject, that the light has to be the predominant light. You know, I don't know. I don't know if there are rules to this. It's just, you know, there's light coming in from the back. It's probably backlighting to some degree. I'm going to show you some examples, some of the images that I grabbed from my archives. First, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Well, you know, once again, I don't know if you've caught the last video, but we went through this, and this is one. This is the actual result of that previous setup right here. So there, you know, were some enhancements done in post-production. It's basically just maybe messing with the exposure slider a little bit and the contrast, and maybe the color, but nothing, you know, crazy. This is the effect of lighting from behind, no lighting coming in from the front, and I think that looks pretty cool. Here's another one that did not make it in that previous video, but you can see the effect here, translucent little petals here. I just think that that looks really cool. That's a really shallow depth of field too, by the way. So you've got some things that kind of blur out. It just adds to that sort of ethereal effect. And I think that that's what I've used backlighting for, you know, with people photography for the longest time. I think that's really the effect that I want, some kind of a wraparound or ethereal look, something, you know, usually high key is what I'm going for. But that's not always the case, as you'll see. So like I said, I'm going to show you some examples. Some of the images that I'm going to show you I've grabbed from my archives so that I can demonstrate you know, a few of the different effects of backlighting. It's not always just, you know, for an ethereal look. And I'm going to talk about how I did each one. I've got some diagrams for some of these, but the rest I'm going to have to verbally explain. I'm sure a lot of these lighting diagrams and setups are explained in detail in some of my previous ebooks. I've got a couple of ebooks that are free right now if you sign up for my mailing list on my website, so you can get the, you know, real, you know, hard specifics of how some of these things are set up. But basically, I just want to go through these. Let's start with natural backlighting, because backlighting doesn't always have to be done in the studio. It doesn't always have to be flash or you know, artificial light. Lots of times it's the sun, all right? And so here, this is window light. It's bleeding around. Look at this effect. It looks like a morning kind of feel, you know? It looks a little dreamy. Now, I know that the expression here, you know, you can make what you will of it, but, you know, just put anybody in this shot and it's going to be kind of a dreamy morning picture. Now, if I dialed in some warmer tones, maybe you'd get more of a late afternoon or early evening feel. By the way, I shot this on film for another video a while back, and I talk about underexposing for grain in that video. You know, when you shoot, you're shooting film, you're underexposing it. You get these thinner negatives. Then you just bump that exposure up later in post, or you have your lab do it or whatever, and you get this cool grain. But you also can get these kinds of cool effects here with the lighting. You can do the same thing with digital shooting raw. You've got a lot of room to do something like this. when you're shooting with RAW. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. This was shot on digital a few years ago. This is done in the studio, and I don't have a flash or anything on the model here, so we're just using this background, which is window light, coming in. So if you expose more for this back here, then you're going to get, naturally the subject is not as bright as the illumination coming into the window. So she's going to go a little darker, and this is going to go a little more midway. Later, you can bump that up in post, and you can just do this until the background gets brighter, and naturally the subject's going to get brighter too. Now you can also do this in camera, and that might be the better way to go. It just depends on how much room you want to give yourself in post. Where you expose for the subject in the background, just allow it to blow itself out a little bit, and you can get an effect like this. Now, this whole idea of what you can do in post versus what you can do in camera, this really applies to all of the examples, or most of them, and you'll see this as we go along. Here is another example, also shot basically in the same location. And I would say that here I was actually exposing more for the subject and just letting that background do what it's going to do. So yeah, while that is backlighting, it doesn't necessarily mean, even in camera, that your subject has to go dark. Okay, late afternoon, just letting the sun do its thing. These are overexposed highlights, but it works for me. It worked for me at the time that I shot it. I like the way that this looked. The light shining through the hair, by the way, that is a kind of halo effect. I would call that a wild halo effect. It's just a very pronounced light shining through the subject's hair. This here is not natural light, but I suppose you'd call it found light. So it's not, I'm not in control of the lighting position or the subject's position, but I can pick my position and line the light and the subject up like this in the frame. So yeah, it's another form of backlighting, and you might see this actually as cross-lighting without a main light for your subject. I talk about cross-lighting a lot, and I'm going to link to a video on that. Cross-lighting is one of my favorite things to do, but here I'm in at a nightclub. I moved to the side of the stage so I can get this cool sort of semi-halo effect. We talked about halo with the last example. This is sort of a semi-halo effect, and you can see the effect here and here. Now, if I had positioned myself even further back this way, then I would get just a complete halo effect. So it'd be like this right here, all the way around. But this is cool. I like this. I like the way that the smoke is being backlit too. So it just gives you that whole effect, that whole kind of smoky nightclub effect. Now, on to what we can do to totally control this effect with our own lighting. And this is pretty easy, actually. Now, here's a diagram that I have. You can just set up a light or two, as in this case. It can be constant or flash behind your subject. Here's your subject. Basically, just do some test shots and get an exposure that works, and then shoot away. Sometimes your original light source doesn't have to be aimed directly at your subject. You can just bounce it. Here's an example of that. This is Casey Crowley. Let me just blow this up just a little bit. This is Casey Crowley. I set this up in her home. This was a small room. I pointed two small flash units, just basically your shoe mount flash, basically speed lights is what we're talking about. I pointed these two speed lights at a wall so that I could bounce the big bright light. It looks like window light back onto the scene. So there's no light from the camera side except for the weaker bounce light that's coming off of the wall behind me as I'm shooting this. So yeah, most of the lights are set up here. They're hitting a wall coming this way. The light's bouncing back off that wall this way, and I got this cool shot. And this was actually a series of shots where we wanted it to look like somebody who's had a rough night the night before and is waking up that next morning still dressed in her, going out clothes and still a little makeup that hasn't been removed yet. And so that's, that's why we have this look here. So I think that was pretty cool. Here's a similar effect for another client, but here we're actually pointing a shoot-through umbrella at her from behind, and there's, a lot less of that bounce lighting coming in from the front side. So you see it's pretty dark down here. We've got a lot of shadow. This is actually inspired by a shot of Marilyn Monroe that I had seen at one point. And we did some, full-length body shots of that. I'm not going to show you those here. But yeah, the umbrella light is coming in from about right here. And you can see that the light bouncing out, from the backside of that umbrella is actually illuminating some of the surface area here too. So we've just got light coming in this way, and you can see how the shadows fall where the light's coming from. It's not really too high. It's a little lower, but it seems to be coming in from about this angle. No light coming in from this side. I think it has a really cool effect. All right, so let's just take a look at a few more with a simple umbrella or two placed behind the subject. Okay, here's one. This is a couple of umbrellas behind the subject. I exposed this in such a way that I was trying to get more of a silhouette effect, and I could do that in post by just dialing down the shadows a little bit. But I kind of like the way that this looks here. It's pretty much as it came out of the camera. And here's another shot from the same setup, but we're just, things are just positioned a little bit differently. And you can see how I've messed with the exposure a little bit in post to bring those deep, dark shadows out a little bit. And we've got that nice wraparound lighting effect. Here's a color version. I think that came out pretty nice. Again, another one with two umbrellas in the background, and here I've also got a fan placed back here because I really wanted to get that hair flying around. So I've got a fan centered behind the model and kind of pointed up, so she's got the hair blowing around. That was a fun day in the studio. All right, so this is at a Dutch angle a little bit, but back here is where we have the umbrella, and it is just blasting some light across the room, and there is no light, no actual direct intentional light coming in from this side. It was pretty dark, and I just bumped up that exposure to bring that out. And of course, when you do that, a lot of that light comes bleeding through like this. And here we have another example of some pretty cool backlighting. All right, so this is what I've been showing you so far for the most part. This is the two umbrella technique here, and just try to get those things balanced and as close as you can. Let's see if I can blow this up a little bit for you. But another technique I've used, and not very often, is it's something that I teach. You can take a piece of shower curtain liner, just a piece of translucent vinyl, hang it on a background stand like this. Here's, you pull these umbrellas off of these two flash units, set them over here, point them 45 degrees towards a wall behind this material, and you've got a nice big bright light here. Now if you had these flashes right behind this piece of material and pointed out towards the subject, you just have these little hot spots right here. That wouldn't work very well. So what I like to do, if I don't have a lot of room to work with, point those lights at the big wall behind, and then that becomes a bigger light to shine back through this right here. And here's what that might look like in real life, behind the scenes for the next shots that I'm going to show you. And here's a silhouette using that, and you can see that shower curtain liner, the creases back here, and those can always be cleaned up, but I thought this was kind of cool, and you can see the light. It's not a perfect silhouette because you've got some light coming across the subject this way, but if you were positioned in a certain way and straight against the light, and you had her turning a certain way, then you could get a more perfect silhouette. I'm not sure I was going for that. This was just a kind of an in-between kind of thing. This is more what I was actually going for. Again, where the light placement is, you're going to have brighter spots, and then you're going to have where the light kind of just drops off a little bit against that wall, coming back through the vinyl material. And so you have this. Obviously, you can clean this up in post, or if you crop it a certain way, it's just not going to matter. All right, so say that you don't have an umbrella or a shower curtain liner. Maybe you've just got one flash, or in my case, sometimes one alien bee or something like that. This is not the perfect example of what I just mentioned because I'm actually using two lights, but here I've got one light over here on this side. I'm blasting against this wall here, and you can see that some of the light actually hits the subject here, which is okay. How can you tell that I'm using a second light, that I'm actually lighting up the subject herself, not just using the backlight and then bumping up the exposure? You can tell because of the shadows here. Look at this shadow off of this little lock of hair, this area of hair here, the shadow right here on the forehead, the shadow under the nose, and right here in these areas here and on the neck. So that'll give you a clue to that. But this one was not shot that way. This was just one light coming in from this side, slamming into the wall behind her. And how can you tell that I wasn't using a light on this side? Because she seems to be illuminated pretty well. Look at the eyes here. No catch lights in the eyes. You would expect some in there, and then the shadows just don't really give you any indication that there's light coming in from, say, this side. I just bumped up the exposure, made this happen, gave it a nice, I guess you'd call this high key, just nice light pastel look. I don't know, with the light coming in from just one side behind her, you might make the argument that, well, it makes the shot look more believable in some way. If you don't like the way that this looks with all this, I mean, this is pretty hot. This is maybe too hot. It's just bleeding into the background here because the material, her top here is pretty light. It's just bleeding into the background. You might not like that. I would say a solution to something like this, if you've only got one light to work with, you could position your subject directly in front of a corner, center her on a corner of the room, or not. Maybe it doesn't even have to be a corner, just a flat wall. Take that light, and instead of letting it slam in from the one side, place it directly behind her, center it behind her, point it at the wall, have enough distance between that light and the wall. She won't be able to move too far one way or the other, but that light's going to slam the wall behind her and illuminate at least, circular area about this much. Of course, a lot of how that's going to end up looking is going to depend on exposure, whether it's something you do in camera or something you adjust in post. Personally, I don't hate how this looks, so I was good with it. Now, two final examples. These were taken at a client's home. I had a small background stand set up with a white seamless. The client didn't have a bare white wall in the room that we were shooting in, so I just set up my small light stand with a fairly narrow, short roll of white seamless, and I think I was using an Alien B unit at the time, and I just blasted the background from one side, and you can see that was from this side back here. The Alien B unit was about right here. I just blasted it this way, and we were looking for this effect, a wraparound light. While, we wanted to make, because this is a maternity shot, we wanted to make the form visible through this translucent material, and so this is what we got. Now, in post, you can edit this out a little bit. When you've got a white background like this to work with, it's easy to clean up, it's easy to extend. I mean, it's pure white, just extend it as far as you want to go. And with this one, the cropping there was a lot of, it goes out to here, so there was a lot of negative space to work with, so it just gave that neat look. And we tried different poses, and I like this one where her profile was kind of showing against the space made here as she bent her elbow, and I like this. So we've got this kind of an S curve. This is a backward S curve, and all the curves make it look really nice, I think. And then the hair kind of illuminated like this, just very, again, I use the word a lot with these pictures, just ethereal. And here is another shot. Again, we left the light where it was. She's just has turned around for this shot, and the light is coming in from this way. And I think this is just a really cool effect. Just really, it's like morning light coming through a window. So hey guys, I hope these examples of backlighting might be useful to you. This kind of thing is really easy to do with a little bit of practice. Try some different variations, see what you can come up with the next time you get somebody in front of your camera, and just have fun. Just experiment and have fun with it. Hey, if you like this video, go ahead and click that like button. Give me that thumbs up. Just click that like button. Leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and click that little bell icon to get notified. Now, whether you do or not, that who knows? I don't control that. Maybe YouTube will make sure that you get notified. But hey guys, that's about it for today. I hope this is something you like to see. And as always, see you next time.